afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday at noon. It's November 5th. This is the I Told You So version of the greenhouse effect. I am your host, Hayden Greene, and we have a lot to get into. And so, woo! So, you know, I hate to be the guy that always says I told you so, but this happens to be one of those times that I guess I have to say I told you so. So welcome to the show. We are here every Thursday, and Hector jumps right in. I love it. I love it. I love it. We got a lot to talk about. But I have to get one thing out of the way before we start talking about the elections. I have to do it. So I'm watching the TV the other day, or no, actually today, and I see a commercial for Celino Law. So some of you from New York know that Celino and Barnes was a very prominent injury firm in New York City, New York State, I would suppose. And Barnes recently died in a plane crash. And before he died, Celino and Barnes were at odds. They had an argument, and one was suing the other, and the whole 9 yards. Dude, this man died less than a month ago. He's already running commercials by himself like Celino Law. Forget Barnes, Celino Law. I was like, oh wow, dude's grave ain't even cold yet. He like erased him out of the name. I was like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Anyway, so I woke up on Wednesday morning and with an existential dread in my gut because I didn't want to turn on the commercial. I didn't want to turn on the TV because I didn't know what I was going to see. And here's the odd thing about this. I sat on here telling y'all not to be, not to worry about like the next day because this is going to take a while. This might take a couple days. This might take a couple weeks. And it looks like that's what's going to happen. But even though I'm the one that told you, he said audio is low. Okay, let's see if I can pump this up. I don't know how to do that, Vaughn. Let me know if it's still low. I'm going to try to speak right into the mic. So even though I was one of the people who were telling you that, oh, listen, you need to meter your expectations that we're not going to get a decision right away, I still woke up on Wednesday with like, all right, I wonder if they managed to pull out South Carolina. I wonder if they managed to turn Texas blue. And like, I don't know why I did that, but I feel like a lot of people did the same thing that I did. Woke up the next day, and as I expected, there were a lot of states that were in turmoil. There were a lot of states that did not know whether or not they were going to be able to call it. And so here we are. What is it, Thursday? 2 days afterwards, and still haven't called it yet. Vaughn, let me know if the audio is still low. If not, I'll switch to a different mic. So anyway, but that just goes to tell you like how it feels to go through all of this and like want to have some sort of a decision and not be able to have that, right? And just so I don't know. It's one of those things that it's like, even though I told you so, it still feels like you want to have some sort of decision on things when it's everything is all said and done. But that's not what we have today, and so we're gonna keep it going. The funny There are funny things going on on Facebook and on Twitter and in different places. And one of the funniest tweets that I saw was American Idol can count 150 million votes in one night. How come we can't get it together? So yes, that's totally different thing. Those are electronic votes, and and it really doesn't matter, right? And we're talking about paper ballots and an electoral system. That said, our electoral system is so broken, so broken. I'm not even going to get into a conversation about the Electoral College, which needs to go. There is actually an agreement between states that the agreement is if that the states will award all of their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote nationwide, right? And so the more states that they get to sign this agreement, right now they have about 14, 15, something around those along those lines. The more states that they get to agree to that, we can circumvent the electoral college. So it means that these states will say, and I think New York and California are two of the people that are on these states will say that if one candidate wins the popular vote, regardless of what my state says, I'm going to assign my electoral candidates to the person who wins the popular vote nationwide. And so that's one way of getting rid of the electoral college. And I think the more we see how fallible this system is, the more states will sign on. And if we can get, so all it needs is the majority of 270, right? So you don't even have to have all the states in the union. All you need to have is 270 of the states agreeing to this. And so then we get back, and then it invalidates all of the other states. So if you get 270 electoral votes, or states that have 270 electoral votes, and they agree to this, then the next election, when the what you call it, yes, Hector heard my washer. Yes, the washing machine and dryer is right down here. Yes, my laundry is done. So that's one way of getting rid of electoral college. But that simply says that we have to get rid of this system. The system is broken. Number one, being able to vote electronically is, come on, something that we should have been. It should have been a thing, right, a long time ago, and it's not. And so we're a country in innovation, and we can't figure out how to allow people to vote electronically. That's a whole nother thing. But also the way that we count votes in the electoral college is antiquated. So every election year, I look at the electoral maps, and it makes me really crazy about the way there is a blue state and a blue city and a red city, a blue state and a red state, a blue county and a red county, and over the last 12 years, what we have seen is that blue and red equals black and white, and it's really interesting when you start to look at electoral maps. Because now what you're seeing is, somebody posted this about Lovecraft. It's like all the red states, all the red counties are sundown counties, and all the red states are sundown states. And it's crazy because I can't find an argument in that statement, right? I can't find a place where I'm going, no, that's not exactly, no. I don't see where they're wrong in saying that. And it's really crazy the way that this country's set up, that the local the metropolitan areas are where you have diversity in this nation, and everywhere else where rural areas are where they are more homogenous, and they're homogenous to the point where and it's homogenous to one race. And it's like, it's interesting that there aren't like, well, maybe there are, and I don't know. It's like you don't normally hear about like a county that's homogenous to a different race besides white people, and that's crazy to me. And just the way this country is made up is something that is bizarre, and nobody looks at it until election time, right? Like so me and the family, we take a vacation every now and again. As a family unit. And so one of the things that we do is we'll go upstate, or we'll go in Jersey, or we'll go somewhere else in rural Pennsylvania, just to get away from the city and like have a pool and just be away from stuff for a while. And it's amazing how different the towns look as soon as you leave the city. And one of the reasons why one of the reasons why cities tend to be more on the democratic side of it is that there is more of a diversity of humanity there. And so if you live in these cities, you're interacting with people who are different than you more often, and you get accustomed to what those differences are and how little those differences mean to your own existence. And if you want to be a raging biased person, right, then you may not be able to buy coffee at Starbucks because you can't take coffee from somebody who you hate, right? Or going to the grocery store might be egregious to you, or anything along those lines. So you have to find a place in your mind to understand people who are different than you are, but also find a place in your mind to understand that just because they're different than you are doesn't mean that they're less than you are. And this is what happens in the bigger cities. But when you're out in rural areas and the only thing that you watch are conservative networks, and the only information that you're getting fed is that these people are not only different than you, they are lesser than you, and more importantly, they want to come kill you. You build, and you don't have, and you've never interacted with any of these people. You don't have anything that tells you that that's not a lie. And this is why you start to see strongholds in places that are rural, because of the fact that people don't have the opportunity to interact with each other. Okay. One of the things that I wanted to really talk about is the incumbent is really over here trying to tell people to stop counting votes. And when you hear stop counting votes, I want everybody to be very, very clear about what it is that we're talking about. So you have to cast your mind back to, yes, 78 million people voted for the incumbent, which is another story. I'll get to that in a second, Hector. So one of the things that is really interesting is that you have to cast your mind back to when we were in the campaign time. And the other thing is you have to remember that we're in COVID. So when you start to look at the people who were disproportionately affected by COVID, those are the people who are black and brown in this country. And so when you start to think about people who were afraid to leave their house and go into places that they weren't sure that they were going to be safe because of their exposure to COVID, those are the same black and brown people. And so, and also, we can debate as to why this is, but we also know that most black people vote for the Democratic Party. And so you have all of those three things put together. And the people in the Democratic Party were saying that we are living through an epidemic and we want all of our people who support us to be safe. So everybody go cast your vote, right, through the mail, absentee ballots, and the whole nine, right? And so the mail-in vote is the vast majority of the votes that are out there. The vast majority of the mail-in votes are also people of color, black and brown people who did not want to expose themselves to the coronavirus when they went to vote. Right. So that's the backdrop. So when you hear the incumbent talk about it's time to stop counting the votes, what you are hearing is yet another dog whistle of saying, please stop counting the black vote. Please stop allowing black people access to the process so that I can retain my power. Also, he only is interested in retaining his power because the minute he is out of jail, the minute he is out of the White House, he's going to the big house. That dude has lawyers waiting to put him in jail as soon as he is not president. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, Hector, I'm getting to it. So one of the really sad things about this is that this is a close race. And why is it sad? I don't mind close races, and to be frank with you, the two people that are running aren't that diametrically different in terms of ideology. I know it sounds crazy for me to say that, but when you break it down, they're in the same quadrant. Anyway, I think that it is sad that this race is as close as it is, primarily because we just went through 4 years of the most embarrassing time in U.S. history. 4 years of it. And still, 78 million people decided that this dude should get 4 more years. and and I don't know if it's 78. I think it's more like 68, and Biden has 73 million. Anyway, so it is it's crazy. It is unfathomable to me that people looked at this dude and said, you know what, I'm a swallow my tongue. I'm a swallow my pride and vote for him just because he's the Republican candidate and give him 4 more years of this. It is indicative of the kind of country that we live in right now. It is egregious at the top of the level. It's at the most top level of egregiousness. This election being close is a symbol of the fact that we are living in a country that a lot of us thought was different. All right, what have I got in here? Latinos in Texas sold their souls for American Dream. 12 cases, orange. Okay, so so let's talk. All right, so Hector brought it up. I had a progression. Hector I was going in order. I have notes. I do a whole show prep. All right, so let's talk about the Latino vote. The first thing that we have to talk about is the fact that we have got to stop talking about the Latino vote as if it's a monolith, right? We have got to stop talking about the Latino vote as if there is one type of Latino voter. First of all, that's the same thing that they do to black people. Like, there's only one type of black person, right? So, but the other piece of it is that it also differs from Latino to Latino, but it also differs regionally. So in Florida, everybody's upset that the Latinos voted for Trump in record numbers. As a matter of fact, the Latino vote for Trump was 71% in Florida. That's a very misleading number. In fact, Telemundo broke it down, and Telemundo said, listen, that 71%, those are Cubans. Cubans who want to, a lot of Cubans who decided that they want to ascribe to as much of a European effect as humanly possible. All right? And so the Cubans are different than the Puerto Ricans, who are different than the Dominicans, who are different than the Mexicans, and also need to be and all have different needs, different mindsets, different ideals. So, for instance, Cubans in Miami generally are Cubans who left on their own. All right, which means that they had the agency and the money to be able to leave Cuba and set up businesses in Miami. And they tend to be very rich, and they tend to be Eurocentric. And so when you hear the Cubans voted, the Latino vote in Cuba, in Miami, you're not talking about people who were disenfranchised by the Cuban government. You're not talking about refugees. You're not talking about people who were disenfranchised by colonialism. You're talking about people who had the agency to leave, right? And so, Telemundo, did I say it wrong? Okay. I said it right. Okay. So that's one of the things and those people are different than the Mexican voters in California, in New Mexico, and Nevada. Those voters tend to be people who are working class citizens, people who have felt the disenfranchisement, who have felt the need to find a way to find agency for themselves in this country because they don't have the affluence and affect that the Cuban Americans have, or just Cubans, because sometimes they don't even call themselves Cuban Americans, right? In Florida. And they're very different than Puerto Ricans in New York City and in Florida. So very different ideas about what government means to them, what this country means to them. Puerto Ricans, as Telemundo said, they voted 23% for the Democratic Party and 23% for the Republican Party and 66% for the Democratic Party, right? Very different numbers, right? Widely skewed. But when 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 the pollsters looked at what the Latino vote was, they all saw it as one big number, and that's where a lot of people fell down, and that's where the Democratic Party has a big issue, because the Democratic Party does not have a stratified target for Latino voters. They look at Latino voters as all one type of voter. Number one. Number two, they don't have a lot of strong leadership in the Latino community. They don't have somebody from the Latino community who is a strong leader in the Democratic Party. So people will say AOC, and that's great, but after you get past that, who else is there, right? And that's one of the things that the Republican Party really actually did a really good job on. They looked at how they could incorporate Latino voters and Latino politicians into their leadership. So we start to look at Mark Rubio and people like him, so that we can start to look at so that they could start to look at diversified and stratified voter attention on different voters, right? So they were, they said Mexicans, we're never going to get that vote, so they ignored them, and they focused on Florida, and they focused on the Cuban and the Venezuelan vote in Florida. It was very strategic, and they actually did it far better than the Democratic Party did. Hey, Mrs. Greene, your husband is ignoring the buzzer. Please help him. Yo, Hector, I'm gonna get the laundry. Just leave me alone. I know it's annoying, right? It's annoying. All right, what we got here? Lord of the Cubans. Cubans think they're white. They have voted conservative since they came to this country. They're accustomed to a dictatorship. Aquila. Let's see what else we got here. Anyway, all right. So we are. So that's one of the places that I think that the Republican Party did a better that did a better job of than the Democratic Party in terms of stratifying what it means to be a Latino voter. And if the Democratic Party is going to have the success that they want to have in the upcoming elections, and there are many more upcoming elections. There are midterm elections. There are local elections. If they want to have the power, or they want to have the affluence that they think that they had, because they speak for all of the people of color, and not realizing that all people of color don't have the same issues, they're going to have to be able to stratify that a little bit better. Dems also need to focus on rural areas and Central America. They absolutely have to. And when you look at the fact that the minute that you leave outside of the cities, it automatically goes to Republican, there's something wrong there. It means that the Democratic Party is not speaking the language of the working class, even though it considers itself to be that party. And people and they have to realize that people vote against their own issues, because, for instance, you have people like Mitch McConnell, who has been in the same Senate seat for 35 years and just won again. Same Senate seat for 35 years, and it represents the third poorest state in the union. All right. And so we're now starting to talk about the fact that they're telling these people something and selling them a bill of goods, and yet they're not getting anything back from it. But the messaging is so great, and they're focusing on the things that they want, that the people want to hear, that they're able to garner their support. Speaking about Mitch McConnell, the Democrats are big mad because Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, all of these people got reelected. And when I tell you there are millions and millions of dollars that were put into the races to unseat, I forget the word, to rout these people from their positions, and still the Republican machine just squashed all of those efforts. Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and Susan Collins, and a whole host of other people were all reinstated to their seats, and there was a hope, and I personally did not think that this was going to happen. There was a hope that the Democrats were going to be able to flip the Senate as well. I never thought that was going to happen. I think that when you come up against the machine, and we talked about this, right? And we talked about the fact that we like the fact that Mitch McConnell had to actually spend money to actually run a race. But I never thought that they would win, and I think I said that. I said that it was great that he's spending the money, but I'm just not, I'm not confident that anybody's going to upset these people, upset these people, and it's such a blow to the gut that none of these people were able to win their races, and it's important to again realize that there is a whole other machine that Alabama and South Carolina and all of these places have in place to make sure that they stay in power and that their access to the power is not interrupted. Even if these people do nothing, these Congress people do nothing for the people who they are elected by. Third poorest state Alabama is. Mitch McConnell has been there for 35 years and was just given another 4 years or 2 years or whatever. 4 years, right? 35 years, right? And so in the debates, you heard the conversation about Joe Biden, wasn't in Congress for 45 years or 47 years or however long, and, he did nothing. I was like, but at least Pennsylvania is a state that is in the top 10 in terms of, in terms of GDP. Alabama's at the bottom. And this dude's been there for 35 years, right? He's also rotting from the outside, if anybody's looked at his hand lately. But anyway, people vote again. I'm in Kentucky. I'm so sorry. I'm getting them all mixed up. Sorry, Kentucky. Anyway, unseat. Yes, that was the word that I was looking for. I'm trying to rush through all of this because I literally have 500 things to say. And so y'all will forgive me if I make a couple of gaffes. Anyway, so yeah, Kentucky's the third poorest state in the union. It's Mississippi, Alabama, then Kentucky, right? So, good gravy. All right. So the other thing, I saw somebody mention Kanye West, and Kanye West got 60,000 votes nationwide. 60,000 people wasted their vote and voted for Kanye West. So I have kids, right? And every now and again, I want to sit my kid down and I want to just open up their head, and look down inside and go, what are you thinking? That's the feeling that I have right now for the 60,000 people that voted for Kanye West. What are you thinking? Were you making a statement? Were you hopeful in some strange way that Kanye West was gonna upset the whole apple cart and somehow become president? Were you just, I don't want to vote for any one of these things? I don't want to vote for any one of these things, so any one of these people, so I'm just going to vote for Kanye. I just need to know, because 60,000 people lost their goddamn mind. Lost it. There's no other way of explaining that 60,000 people voted for Kanye West. What are you doing? What is you doing? Oh, so the whole Kanye West thing is an issue primarily because the next thing that I'm going to bring up, which is the fact that 18% of black men voted for Trump. Nearly a fifth of the black men that voted in the election cast their vote for the incumbent. That is twice as much of a percentage point. I don't know what the actual numbers are. That's twice as big of a percentage as did in 2016. Which means that after 4 years of this man and everything that he has done and said, more black men said, you know what? That's my guy. 4 years ago, we talked about the fact that 8% of the black men were voted for the orange scourge, and said that, well, it's because of misogyny and they didn't want to vote for a woman, and Hillary was identified as a woman, so that has to be That has to be what the issue was, is that the misogyny of these black men were, well, now we got two men. Now what's the excuse? And people want to blame Ice Cube and Wheezy and Lil Pump and all of these people for saddling up to the incumbent and saying, like, moving, and that moved the vote. But I wanna believe that those people don't have that much of an influence on black people. And I probably am wrong in this, but y'all are gonna have to leave me with my beliefs, or tell me, or maybe it had to do with Kamala, right? That's I, I don't understand. I'm a black man. I know a bunch of black people, from like the full spectrum of black people, right? Like, even the people who I know who were black, who were Trump supporters this year were like, yeah, nah, I'm good, right? So, like, where does the increase come from? Did, like, all the rappers and their entourages suddenly decide that they're going to vote, and they all decided to vote for Trump? Like, what happened? This is the most, of all of the stats that I have seen over the last couple of days, that stat is the piece that is the most disturbing. A lot of last minute rappers who supported Trump helped get that 18%. I'm going to let you be great, but just remember you said 60K for Kanye. Yes, there were 60K for Kanye. I wholeheartedly believe that most of them voted for Trump because they are also anti-Kamala. And I don't get that. Some of my best friends are black men. Yes, Vaughn, some of your best friends are black men. It's because we are crabs in a barrel and we didn't want the U.S. to do better. I'm always shocked how unintelligent people are out there. It's crazy. And actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole crab in a barrel analogy. A lot of people always talk about black people and people of color have a crab in a barrel and a mindset. And I read something that has stuck with me till this day. So when we start to talk about crabs in a barrel, we talk about people trying to get out of the barrel and pulling everybody down, for those of you not familiar with the analogy. But you ever stop to think, and you have to stop to think, when that a barrel is not the natural habitat for crabs. It's not, right? Crabs live in other places besides a barrel, which means what? That somebody had to put them in that barrel, and now they're clamoring to get out. And when we focus on the fact that the crabs are pulling each other down trying to get out of the barrel, we lose sight of the fact that somebody had to put them in that barrel. And we lose sight of the fact that that the thing that we should be doing is addressing the fact that somebody put these crabs in this barrel and left them to fend for themselves. All right, so be careful with the crabs in the barrel mindset. They're in the barrel for a reason, and we lose sight of the reason that they're in the barrel. Anyway, so all right, I've seen, and here's the thing, Kanisha. There's also a statistic that black women also voted for Trump at a higher percentage rate this year. They're up from 4% in 2016 to 8% this year. And that one, I have no idea where that's. That one was like a real head shaker, because even if you're saying it's like, all right, well, they don't want to vote for Joe because of the crime bill and because all these other things, and he's and yada yada yada. I really should go take care of that laundry because it's really annoying. We have a dryer that every 5 minutes it just keeps on just buzzing to let you know it's like, hey, I'm done. I'm gonna keep on turning this over and over again until you come take this out of here. But I have no idea what this whole thing about black women, why there's an increase in black women voting for Trump. That one, I got nothing. There's literally a black woman on the Democratic ticket. Literally. I mean, like, not a sympathizer for black women, not somebody who is married to a black woman, not somebody who says that black women are great, but literally a black woman on the ticket. And still more black women voted for Trump this year than they did 4 years ago after seeing all the craziness that's going on. I got nothing. I got nothing. I and I'm a smart guy. At least that's what my mommy tells me, right? And I got nothing. Not a thing. That one is that one just threw me for an absolute loop. So I don't know. Um, so we in love with the wealth and hate ourselves, old Kanye. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. That's crazy. So the other piece that and Hector, this is where I had a flow because I wanted to talk about the Latino vote and then go into talking about Florida. And so all I have to say is Florida, you get a big fat. Seriously, what is wrong with y'all? And like I have friends in Florida. Just it sounds like I have black friends, but I have friends in Florida, and I have frat brothers in Florida. And what is wrong with y'all? And y'all now here's where y'all would, and it's the Cuban vote, and it's the Venezuelan vote, and the people in the metropolitan cities. We voted for the Democrat, and we didn't do. Don't give me all of that. The entire panhandle voted for this bizarre things, right? And like apparently not enough people came out and voted for anti the incumbent in the major cities. Like I'm gonna have to find a new place to go hang out when it's warm. Florida was easy. Now I gotta go to like Arizona, right? Vaughn says I've had conversations with people who don't like Kamala because because of the propaganda around her as a prosecutor. That's a very good point. So here's the thing, right? And we talked about this last week, I think, or we talked about it 2 weeks ago, about the fact that Kamala's history as a prosecutor was, people had issues with it. And Code Switch did a really good podcast about her whole aura, about like her history, and you should really go listen to that. I mean, it's too late now, right? But we'll see how this plays out. But the thing about that I always want to tell people, when you see black people going into law and wanting to be a prosecutor, you can't discount that immediately and be like, oh my God, it's like, it's like, how are you going to work for the devil and putting black people in jail? I take my students to go to the DA's office, the district attorney's office here in New York City. And so we speak with ADAs who are prosecutors. And so I have them talk to them on a regular basis. And every year, every time that we have somebody who is a person of color who is a prosecutor, the one thing that we ask them is like, well, do you feel bad that you sometimes put black people in jail or put people of color in jail? And why didn't you want to become a defense attorney? And here's what every single one of them tells you. If you are looking to affect change in any community and you want to stand up for your community, the person that has the most power to save people are the prosecutors. That doesn't make sense, say my students, right? Well, here's how you have to think about it. As a defense attorney, you have to wait for the prosecutor to levy charges or to waive the case or to forward it in a particular way, and that will then make a determination as to whether or not you, as a defense attorney, can build a defense, and even so, you now have to convince a jury or a judge about said person's innocence. As a prosecutor, if you are a black prosecutor, you can decide to take a case or not take a case, as we saw in the Breonna Taylor case, right? You can make a decision as to whether or not you're going to prosecute somebody. And so you now have more power than a defense attorney, because your prosecutor can say, I'm going to recommend that this person gets probation, or I'm going to recommend that this person doesn't have bail, or I'm going to recommend that we dismiss the case, or I'm not even bringing this to the grand jury. You have that power. So when you see black people going into law enforcement and becoming prosecutors, don't automatically think that they hate their people. You have to look at the bigger game, because they have more ability to do good for their communities as a prosecutor than as a defense attorney. And you have to just think about that. Um, uh, and so a prosecutor's job enforce the law on the books, but they can influence the severity of punishment and rehabilitation. They are not lawmakers. Yes, they're not lawmakers, and that's exactly my point. But they can make it. The prosecutor, the DA's office, can make a decision as to which cases they bring and which cases they're not going to bring. And that's a very, very large power structure that if you just leave it to people who don't understand our communities, you will always end up on the bad side of the stick. So when you start to look at Kamala's career as a prosecutor, you have to add all of that stuff in. Okay? But yeah, so Florida, y'all gonna have to deal with it on your own. Like, y'all are, yeah. Hector says come to Georgia, and it's like, yeah, y'all ain't got no water, man. Like, y'all got a river or anything down in Georgia? Like Atlanta's landbound. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm from the Caribbean. I need water. Any place that I go, I need water. I need to at least see water, right? Even if I'm not getting in that water. And I don't mean a pool. I mean I need to see water, which is why I can't live anywhere else than on the coast or some place that has a really big river or on an island. I need water. I need to be able to see it. Georgia, y'all are landbound. I don't know, man. But anyway, I gotta find a new place to go besides Florida. Y'all need to get your stuff together, and I don't understand what's going on down there. I will say this though: the memes that have come out are, I love the internet. Y'all are some funny folk, especially Black Twitter and people on Black people on Facebook. Some of the stuff that's come out is hilarious. There was a meme that said the only Florida that I recognize, and it was Florida from Good Times. There were memes of Hamilton talking about never going to be president now. And I have to. So I have a fraternity brother, and his name is Darcel, and like every time somebody says something, like immediately a picture comes out, and you just know he's just waiting for somebody to say the right thing so he could drop this meme. And that's how I feel about Facebook and Twitter. It's like y'all thought of all the scenarios that could happen and just waiting around until something happens and like, all right, I'm gonna drop the meme now and drop it, because they come out way too fast. Y'all, I have to think that there are 4 different memes that y'all have waiting, and then as a certain situation comes, like, all right, can't use that one. All right, can't use that one. All right, we're gonna use this one, right? So I think it's hilarious. It's where isn't Georgia on the coast? No, isn't? Oh, Lake Lanier. No. Wait, but Lake Lanier is nowhere near Atlanta. That means I gotta live in the suburbs. We already talked about that. No. Anyway, so but I think that there is real comedy out there, and I am heartened, or I am, my soul is bolstered by the fact that people can still find humor out there, and we can still be able to, hold on to a little bit of humor and a little bit of, goodwill in our souls. I had a conversation with a certain other person, and they were trying hard to find the good part of any of this, right? And I think and I think one of the things that they had an issue with was, with all of the people that are still voting for the incumbent, after all of that we have seen, all of the goodwill that we saw in like these Black Lives Matters movements, and people getting on different channels and talking about how they stand with us, or stand with disenfranchised groups, that was all a lie. And And I had to remind the my friend was that there are, even if a county is completely, a county is red and it's showing up on a map as red, it doesn't mean that everybody in that county voted for the incumbent. There are pockets of people who are still believe in equality for everyone and believe that the rhetoric that the current incumbent has been spouting was divisive to this country. And so I want to take that message and give it to everybody here as well. This is a perfect time for everybody to sit back and go, it's like, see, I told you all these people don't care about us, but there are lots and lots of people who still believe in this country and believe in the way that it should look and should be. And just because they live in places that are not completely blue, it is not a reason to write everybody off and start to question whether or not that person who says that they're your friend is actually your friend. And that's all I'm really going to say about that, because it's I'm not giving everybody a pass. There's some people who lie to your face, be like, yeah, 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 Black Lives Matter, I'm with you, and then go pull that ballot for Trump. And I think that there are those people that are out there, but I have to believe, for my own sanity, that the people who have said to me that they are my supporters, the people who believe that I have just as much of a right in this country to walk around safely and not be harassed by the police, and buy the houses and places that I want to buy them, and get jobs at the same clip that people who don't look like me do. The people who have told me that they believe in ideas like that are not lying to my face and then voting for somebody who believes in the exact opposite. So I have to believe that, and so that's what I'm going to put out, and that's what I'm going to tell to my friend to also believe, because that's what I believe this country actually is. That said, empty vessels get the most noise sometimes, and so the people who are devoid of that kind of moral compass are the people who you hear about the most, and that's why it feels like this country is as polarized as it is. And I think that when you start to break it down, there are a lot of places where it is encouraging that we are moving in the right direction, even though it feels right now today that there is so much more work to do, and there is, but feel that there is some stuff out there that we can hold our hat to and hold on to. A couple other things. On Wednesday, there was a protest in New York City. The protest was to make sure that you count every vote. Okay. So I'm just going to say this. We can't protest about everything. Okay. I think, yes, we need to count every vote, but in New York, they're counting the votes. And I mean, in New York, they don't have to count the votes. They know which way the electoral votes are going. And only in the races for local elections, it doesn't really matter what the votes are, right? So they're counting the votes in New York. New York isn't part of some sort of conspiracy to not count the votes. It's that I can understand if this protest was happening in Philadelphia, and I have to, and this is something that I felt all summer, and I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, is that we pick up the causes across the country that sometimes don't have anything to do with us, and we then fall victim to people who want to use those causes to enact violence or to riot and stuff like that. And then New York City gets a bad name when the thing didn't even happen in New York City. Now, this protest was peaceful, but what happens if we're protesting about count every vote, and then somebody uses that and busts up Macy's window, although it's been boarded up, busts up all of these windows, and now we have another thing to talk about besides the fact that we should be counting all the votes in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, in Michigan, right? So like, it's at a certain point in time, it's a boy who cries wolf. If we are going to protest about everything in New York, about things that don't affect New Yorkers, when it's time to protest about stuff that actually affects New Yorkers, people are going to lose interest because it'll be just another protest. That's just my take on this. I know it's not a popular take, but I think I just think that we've got to be judicious in what we take to the streets for. So that's just me. Um, for those of you who are not watching, Allegheny County in Pennsylvania actually just halted the count of their votes because of the fact that Allegheny County, for those of you who don't know, is where Pittsburgh is, and they sent out ballots to everybody, and now there's a lawsuit preventing them from counting 35,000 votes because they're trying to make sure that the ballots that were sent out weren't actually they don't match the people who came into to vote themselves. So that's just an FYI. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up because I gotta go get my kid. And y'all have been amazing. I hope y'all like the new intro video. That's gonna go on to the beginning of the videos now, and we're gonna put these on. We're finally gonna add them to my YouTube channel, and so you can view them at any time, and people who don't have the time to view it here on Facebook can view it there as well. Can we speak on a situation that happened in Graham, North Carolina, where the Klan and the police attacked the peaceful protesters? I can't. I don't know anything about this. When did this happen? I don't that one I missed that one completely. And to be fair, there are probably a lot of stuff that we've missed completely. Next week we will talk about Nigeria. Next week we will talk about the hurricanes and all the rest of that stuff. But I missed that one, and I promise I will go. I'll go research and we'll talk about it next week. So look out on my YouTube channel for more information about, find out about these videos. They'll be up there. The podcast will be up there. We also have I also have a, what do you call that? Family portrait stuff. So if you are looking for Christmas cards, hit me up. Look on my Facebook page. If you're looking to get your family portrait done in New York City, we have a session coming up on November 22nd, and it is like $50 to get your family picture. So if you still need a place and Sears is shut down and you can't get it from anywhere else, come back here and we'll take care of you. And last but not least, I'm just going to say one thing. Everybody who knows me knows that I am a stickler about Christmas music. I firmly believe that you need to let Thanksgiving happen. Go through the season of Thanksgiving, and then on the day after Thanksgiving, look, man, after Thanksgiving meal is served, you can start, but start after Thanksgiving with the Christmas music. And if you know me for more than 10 minutes, you know that this is one of my pet peeves. Stop playing Christmas music right after Halloween. Right? I've said this time and time again, and I will parang soca. Yes, I love it. All right. But this is 2020, and I am officially saying, for the record, if somebody is out there who feels the need to play Christmas music or parang music ahead of Thanksgiving in order to make themselves feel happy, if they're putting up decorations for Christmas right now in order to make themselves feel happy, if they are drinking pumpkin spice at a clip that is unhealthy for the body to make themselves feel happy, go ahead and do it. It's 2020. We all need something to make ourselves feel happy. And this is the first year and only year that I will allow for it, because I have any kind of authority, but I will allow for people playing Christmas music before Thanksgiving. Whatever y'all need to do to make yourself happy, this is 2020. I get it. I love y'all. I will see you next week. This has been the Greenhouse Effect. Y'all stay cool, stay safe, and stay sane. I'll see you next week.